Now you're probably thinking to yourself, second video and he's already doing a top 10. That's pretty random. Well, check the name and you'll know the facts. Hello everybody, my name is Nick Starwin and welcome to Nick's Random Reviews, the revamped show that takes advantage of the word diversity. Now I was going to review Doctor Who this week, but upon sitting down to make notes for the review, I realised there are actually more problems than I realised before, and it would take at least another week to finalise the details I was going to go through. After all, if I'm looking at 2 seasons in particular, I've really got to make sure I get it right. Now instead of you waiting 2 weeks for another video to come out, not that it would matter because I think most of you were offended by my first review so much, you fled back to your protective bubbles, but for the braver ones out there, I thought we'd do a bit of a nostalgia trip in some ways, and look at some of the questions that I brought up while watching shows as a kid. Now I was raised on a variety of old and new kids shows growing up, and when we got cable and Sky, my exploration of the channels helped me discover shows no one had heard of since. But regardless of this, me and my friends used to question a lot of structures about popular series, pointing out flaws and questioning the morals of the characters or heck, the show entirely. And I know, I don't mean anything stupid like, is Thomas the Tank Agent sexist? More like, is Hector from Hector's House an abusive alcoholic? Or more extreme cases, does Penny Crayon draw rude pictures? Now I know these questions aren't exactly important to unravelling the mysteries of the universe, but they were important to a child who at the time thought Russia was a hot country, and the reason why his food was always burnt was because of Sainsbury's. So I thought, to celebrate the innocence, or stupidity of youth, I would count down my top 10 favourites. So without trying to sound like Matthews Ontario, here are my top 10 questions about my childhood shows. Number 10 is Mr. Benn on drugs. Straight out the starting gate with this one, Mr. Benn was a UK children's show made back in the 1970s for the BBC, about a gentleman named Mr. Benn who every so often would travel down to the local costume shop and try out a costume recommended to him by the shopkeep, who would appear out of nowhere and give you a heart attack. The catch is, whenever he puts on a costume, he gets magically transported to a world related to the costume he is wearing. This can range from a baker, clown, astronaut, knight, and so on and so forth, and after each adventure, he would return the costume to the changing room and then leave, because he was a stingy and didn't ever need a costume. How the are you not taking something for that? Yes, I know as a kid I didn't know about drugs, and if I did, I'm very disturbed, but I knew about hallucinogenics because of the hallucination in Dumbo and heck, the creation of the magic roundabout. So you must have been taking some serious LSD to just walk into a costume shop, put on a costume, and then have a trip into a world related to it. And seriously, I think the reason that shopkeep just appears in front of you is because we're following your drug trip and he's actually moving normal pace, but your mind can't process it. So he's just like, where is he? Oh shit, there you are! All I can imagine is him changing into the costume and then spending the remaining hours of the time running around in circles having a really bad acid trip, screaming and miming the actions he's hallucinating in front of everyone, all the while the shopkeep mugs him of his cash to pay for any damage that he causes and for the loss of service with other customers. Because have you ever noticed that whenever he goes in, there are never any customers, further proving my point. The moral of the story is, don't do drugs and do roleplay at home. But if you live in a county or a state that actually has a legalization on weed, do drugs at home and do roleplay at home. Don't do it in someone's costume shop. That's a business. Moving on to number 9, how big are Clifford? Clifford the Big Red Dog is a popular series about the little girl Emily who adopts a puppy that suddenly grows into a humongous dog, and it tells of their, quote, adventures. Not a lot really happens. I think the dog just sold the show because the cat had taken over the internet. But one thing I've always questioned about Clifford, apart from how much obviously it costs to feed him, because that must cost thousands. What do? They just rent out a quarry and fill it with dog biscuits? Or if you want something a bit more softer, cows? I don't exactly know what the appetite of a kaiju beast is. Godzilla eats radiation, so anything's possible. But from my experience of owning a dog, they do a lot of and depending on the diet, it can be up to at least 4 times a day. That's a lot of So how in the hell do they clean it all up? And furthermore, where do they put it? Is there like a construction company they hire equipment off just to scoop it up? That town must be flooded with it, especially on a bad day when Clifford's ill, not to mention the effects on the atmosphere it must have. Would be like 18th century London over there, probably kills thousands with a new type of plague. Is this why they got kicked out of the first town they were in? Emily, For future reference, get a forever puppy. When they grow up, they're exactly the same size as when they were a puppy. It's a good tip for you. Getting even darker at number 8, where are all the other soup dragons? Out of all the characters in the Clangers, I always question why there was only one soup dragon. Excluding the baby soup dragon, because I think they've got some sort of self-egg fertilizing system, which I'm sure many extreme feminists search for in their quest for total ignorance. But throughout the series, I've actually never seen any other ones, and at the same time, why is she so happy to give the Clangers her soup when they don't really treat her with any respect? Of course, in the new series, they are a lot friendlier to the soup dragon, but in the old series, they treat her like an endangered servant or misbehaving pet, and very little else in the way of respect. So is the soup dragon in some form of contract to live a coexistent habitation with them, or is she a slave to them? We know the Clangers are scroungers and collect anything they can find and make useless inventions out of them. Maybe they came to the planet, saw its potential as a home and invaded it, killing off all the other soup dragon inhabitants and keeping her as a workforce labourer. Now that's a conspiracy theory. You lizard people. Now that's the real deal. Just don't eat the soup. It's made of people. Now for a real head scratcher, number 7, how does Charlie Brown have friends? Peanuts character Charlie Brown is by far one of the most depressed children in published history, which is saying something because there are a fair few miserable characters in publications to go through. But regardless of this incredibly negative trait, he's still able to have numerous friendships and be a popular person amongst the other kids in suburbia. Why? He is the biggest buzzkill of them all. He's like the Adam Conover of the 1950s, the way he ruins Christmas and Halloween. Are they just really taking a lot of pity on him? Because that's a lot of pity. Or is he one of those rich kids who everybody just wants to be his friend because they can get some free cash out of him? And this isn't the only odd member of the Brown clan. Brown. You have a chaotic beagle that does nothing but torment the other children and a sister who is just a creepy psychopathic stalker. It's got to be money. Or incredible amount of pity. Or maybe the parents just go around and ask other parents to let Charlie hang around with their kids, and he kinda just stuck. Charlie Brown, we love you, but please stop being depressed and go play baseball happily with the other kids. Bit of a crime one for you at number 6, why does Inspector Gadget have useless gadgets? You are dealing with a master criminal, going to the lengths of a terrorist for that matter, and your main point of action is an inspector who has all on the line of useful gadgets that can actually stop Dr. Claw. Are you that retarded? Oh wait, sorry, I can't say that. Soft-headed? Go-Go Gadget toothbrush, Go-Go Gadget silly string, and Go-Go Gadget stilts are your main point of stopping master criminals, instead of more useful creations such as Go-Go Gadget taser gun, Go-Go Gadget handgun, or Go-Go Gadget pepper spray, because you know you spent millions and millions of dollars building the perfect android. Heck, why make it harder for the criminals? Just give them some stupid things to make it more of a challenge. This is why it gets shown up by a little girl and a dog, because at least they have some common sense and skill behind what they do. Here's a thought, Go-Go Gadget a pair and take some notes from Robocop and install a Go-Go Gadget heat seeker and shove it up Dr. Claw's ass. We get all economical at number 5, how can Dexter build a laboratory but can barely afford anything else? Now everyone must have asked this question while watching the series. It is ridiculously stupid. Dexter has managed to build an alternate reality space behind his bookcase to build a futuristic laboratory, pushing human science beyond anything anyone has seen, but he still has to go to his mother for loose change when the ice cream van comes along. Now before you all go start saying shit like, oh maybe he used all the money to build the laboratory, stupid, go f**k yourself, because he's still building stuff out of nothing while at the same time scrounging for pennies for the basic of things. Is he just really bad with money or just incredibly stupid? There are even scenes where he has to replace things in the laboratory and can barely even do that. One full episode even shows him trying to locate the light bulb section at a hardware store. You built a lab out of nothing. How did you locate the materials in the first place to make half of the you own? Sorry Dexter, you may be a boy genius and everything like that, but when it comes to heck, money, or even the social norms of surviving as an adult, you're as thick as No wonder Mandak owns your ass in the future. Something a bit racist at number 4, why do some trucks have faces and others do not in Thomas the Tank Engine? Now audiences have been complaining for decades about the gender ideologies of Thomas the Tank Engine, but let me make it very clear to you, they are talking engines. Wait for it, They have no gender representation whatsoever or the need for reproductive organs, so they don't really need a gender to begin with. They were stories written for a little boy who was sick in bed. Get over yourself. But if we are going to nitpick, I would like to call you all rolling stockists, because while you were complaining about that, I was looking at the trucks and wondering why some have faces and others don't. Again, a very important question about our society. Is it because they are coloured or because they are lower class additions to the working of the railway? Some are blessed with the physical appearance of human emotion and speech, while others lay in silence, not able to say a single word, so they have to cause trouble to lash out and be noticed. Didn't think of that, did ya? I like to think of the trucks as a form of slave trade, especially when I learnt about it in school, and how there were thousands shipped over to the white land, as I'll dub it, and made to work in the background as if normal, with no appreciation whatsoever, which led to all sorts of trouble. So yeah, the trucks are African slaves. That's why they're so troublesome for the engines, because they hate the engines, especially white ones. Well, actually there only are white ones, so the point still stands. You're all rolling stockists. We got something adorable at number 3. What are the exact ingredients for everything nice in the Powerpuff Girls? Sugar, spice, and everything nice. These were the ingredients chosen to create what will turn into a copyright claim if I continue the quote. Now we get the sugar and spice bit, unless I really want to be picky and choose which spice in particular you're referring to, but the main point is, what exactly is considered nice? Let's have a look, shall we? Well, judging by the clip, we see that stuffed bunnies are nice, kittens are nice, well that goes without saying of course, unicorns, a mythical creature that curses you if you drink the blood of, is nice, flowers, unless you're allergic to pollen, ice cream, yeah that's nice, can't deny that, the dying suns are statistically nice, as are burning balls of energy, and your major organ, but rainbows are cute I suppose. Well, that's a bit biased of you, Professor Utillium. There are plenty of nice things out there. Dogs, otters, toucans. You could open your mind up, mate. Stuffed crust pizza, that sensation you get when you step into a warm shower on a cold day. So many nice things. Bubble wrap and heck, Hugh Jackman. I didn't see Hugh Jackman in there. He's nice. What are you doing? Sorry, Professor. You'd make even better little girls if you actually managed to put these ingredients in. They might have had a chance against the rowdy rough boys. Something controversial at number 2. Where are the parents in Fireman Sam? Now, I'm not referring to the 2000s claymation and CGI one. I'm referring to the 90s one, the very first one that had that kick-ass guitar solo with that power metal theme song. When Fireman Sam was actually a good series, you had this small town in the middle of Wales that seemed to be constantly in turmoil, usually because of a ginger kid arsonist, but I'm not going to talk about Sam's source of income. The real thing that got me pondering was where the hell are all the other parents? Aside from Norman's mother Dilys, Bella the Italian woman, and the entire fire brigade of Pontypandy, there are literally no other adults around the area. The closest to any family connection is Sam being the uncle to James and Sarah, who just seem to always be around him, practically living in his house. Now I know the real reason is probably down to budgeting of making extra models and stuff, but let's look at this from a different perspective. Now Sam is the only tolerated character out of them all because you've got the Sergeant who is old than time, and Elvis who's immature and stupid, so let's think for a moment that maybe Sam is the dad of all these children. Now, let's put it into this formation. James and Sarah look a lot like Sam, and of course they call him Uncle, maybe because he can't face up to his fatherly responsibilities and the mother disappeared when they were born, so he pretended to be their uncle. And then let's look at Norman. Let's just say Sam may be going into Dilys' shop for more than just a pick and mix, if you know what I mean. But maybe that's just a theory. A Welsh theory. Let's move on to the final number. And the number 1 question asked about my childhood show is, why couldn't animation companies match appearance to age? Why was this a lot more common than it should have been? Seriously, when you were a kid and watched these shows, did you not look at the characters and go, why do they look older than me and we're the same age? I know this could be some form of poetic licensing, but it creates such a warped ideology of the expectations you were when growing up as a kid. One prime example of this was with the Disney show Recess. Yes, the series is a classic and always a good laugh, but how many 4th graders do you know who look like this? I can tell you, 0. This is what you look like when you're in high school, especially when you look at King Bob. He looks about 18 for God's sakes. Now it could be adding some maturity to the characters or something, but it was just plain stupid, especially in shows like Rugrats, where you get Angelica, who is supposed to be 3 years old, but looks and talks like she is 7. I think Dill was the only character that fit their age closely, and this was a show about babies. This used to warp my mind growing up. Seriously, you're on the footstep of puberty, about to knock on its door and be greeted with hell. But some of these characters you're watching, who are younger than you, have kicked the door down and ran through. I was about 13 or 14 until my voice broke. But you've got Mikey on Recess, who sounds like one of the tenors, and he's 9. Now, the best example of these age obscurities are in anime the most, where because the laws around consented sex is so unbalanced, you can draw characters to look older. Examples include Ash from Pokemon, who looks nothing like a 10-year-old unless you got an early growth spurt, Sailor Moon, who is originally 14 in the manga and she appears fully grown up, and the most worst of all is noted in Tenchi Muyo with the character Sasami Jirai, who is 8 years old. 8 years old! And there's risque images of her on the internet. She looks 15! What kind of world do these animators live in? Look, I know when you grow up, your mind becomes a bit jaded towards what the younger generation was like in your day. But seriously, next time you want a reference, look at images. I mean, obviously legal images. Unless you're Japan, then I don't know what you're going to do about that scenario. But if you're a parent, look at photo albums. It's really not that hard to get a good par example for this. People complain all the time about the representation of models, both male and female, in magazines and how photoshopping can cause false ideologies for children. But seriously, look at some of these kids shows. They're doing it just as bad. They're creating a false image that children will never grow up to be unless they hit their teens. So they're looking at these cartoons thinking, one day I'll be cool looking, and they'll never reach it. That's just as bad, but again, apples and oranges, people. So aside from a rant there at the end, that was my top 10 questions about my childhood shows. Did I enlighten you, or did I just ruin your fond memories completely? Remember, if you feel like adding anything to this review or future reviews, be sure to comment below and remember to like and subscribe in order to keep up to date with future videos that I do in the future. But until then, I've been Nick Darwin, hope I've ruined your memories, and I'll see you next time. You two, time out. Time out. Now, listen here. Stop fighting. I'm trying to make a video. Stop fighting. Okay? Do we love each other? Do we love each other enough to stop fighting for 5 minutes, eh? Do we? We're gonna stop fighting for... Yeah? No. Oh, of course not. No, you're not. No.